There are two things you will never catch me doing. Drinking liquid death, because it's just affliction t-shirts for people who like canned water, and playing minor bar chords like this. Oh, it's so difficult, it's so hard, and also it doesn't really help. There's so many different ways to do it. So this is actually a little bit of a follow-up to a lesson I did a few days ago, where I was talking about how you can always find all the notes to play in a key by taking the root note of whatever key you're in. Let's say we're in G major. Take the root note, go 2 frets higher, and then the 5th fret to the 7th fret is the same all the way down on all of the strings, right? So 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 7. So what I was doing, I was playing like a major chord, and then jumping into like the cool little inflections that you could do, whether it's like the 4 chord, the 5 chord, or the 1 chord. Okay, so I will link you to that video in case you didn't watch it, but you don't necessarily need to watch that video to understand this one because we're talking about minor chords, all right? The cool thing about thinking about a key and then just focusing in on just 2 frets of it really helps you just understand the whole fretboard, and then you can start moving shapes around, and it's really just a fun time. Unlike drinking liquid death, right? We're not trying to scam anybody with some fancy marketing, just good old-fashioned teaching going on right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the most important minor chord in a key, the relative minor, which you will find on the 6th degree. All that means, before you check out on me, is if we play the major scale starting on G, the people's key, G, A, B, C, D, E, that E note is the relative minor. So if you're on the low E string, whatever key you're in, if this is your root note, you just go 4 frets higher down a string, or you can go back 3 frets. E minor, okay? Now what you can do is actually play like a cool extension of this chord using that little 5th and 7th fret trick that we talked about. So what I'm gonna do is instead of playing an E minor open or in bar chord land, I'm gonna play it like this. Okay, this is an E minor 9 chord. So I've got the 7th fret on the A string, I've got the minor 3rd, the 5th fret on the D string with my pointer finger, and then my ring finger and my pinky are grouped together like we do a lot of the time playing this style on the G and the B string, right? So, the cool thing is, we can really transition this very easily to another minor chord in this key. Okay? So, in any key, the 2, 3, and 6 notes of the key become minor chords. So, G, A, B, C, D, E. So, A minor, B minor, E minor are going to be the chords. All right? So, even if we don't talk about the inflections, which we're going to learn right now, we can just use these as maybe easier ways to get around A minor, B minor, and E minor. And again, I'm not saying that they're better because, you know, open chords always sound great, but you can use this in any key because we're not using any of the open strings to help us out, all right? So, we're going to practice this A minor, B minor, E minor, and then start inflecting notes just from the 5th and 7th frets, okay? So we've got this E minor 9 chord, and then if you move your middle finger a string lower, and then this kind of group of your ring finger and pinky, same thing, move it a string, and then your pointer finger to the 5th fret on the B string, now we have a B minor 11. So I want you to just work on this first. E minor 9, B minor 11. Or, if you don't want to worry about your pointer finger, you can just get a B minor 7, like this, where it's just the 7th fret of the E, D, and G strings, right? E minor to B minor 11. Okay, so it's a different flavor. So practice going back and forth. And while you're doing that, I'll tell you the sponsor of today's video. It's Sweetwater and Sennheiser specifically. I've been trying to get a better sound when I do these videos because there's like a lot of, I'm shooting them in an apartment in Los Angeles, there's like a lot of street noise. So I'm actually using the Sennheiser shotgun microphone, which is really cool. It just goes right into my camera. I don't have to worry about an interface. There's just a battery in it. It's got a long barrel, and the longer the barrel, the more concentrated you can get the sound. So again, it's super reasonably priced. It plugs right into my Sony camera that I'm using and just uses audio from that. And I just got it pointed at me. It's like this far away from me right now. And it's pretty much just picking up my voice and the guitar and really rejecting a lot of that outside sound going on. So super stoked that Sweetwater sent this over, because this is an actual huge need for me, because I've got so much, just like I said, extraneous noise going on. So thank you to Sweetwater. Thank you to Sennheiser for hooking it up. Huge fan of both of those guys, so definitely show them some love with the affiliate link in the description. All right? So now we got these, which you can see this is all being built from the 5th and 7th fret. Anyway, so maybe let's start working on doing some inflections with it, all right? Maybe we can just come up with like a little simple riff to play between that E minor chord. So I'm playing the chord, and then I'm just gonna go A string, 5-7, D string, 5-7, G string, 5, and then back to the 7th fret. B. Okay, and then after that, when I play that B minor, I'm just really just kind of at random exploring just between the 5th and the 7th fret. I could take that group of fingers that I already have together and then kind of do those double stops where I'm playing them at the same time on the A and D string, or the D and G string, or the G and B string, or the B and E string. It's really cool because you can kind of just take that time in between chords, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and 2, and 3, 4. And then, you know, before you know it, I feel like you're really gonna notice that your timing is getting better because you're giving yourself just a select time to get all this stuff done. Now, what I want to do to actually branch off and maybe add a little more of the fretboard into this is talk about an arpeggio that's going to go with any of the minor chords in any key. So if we take that E, right, we can think of this little kind of diamond-shaped arpeggio pentatonic E exercise, right? So if we have the root note, its minor third, when you're rooting it on the lower strings, is always going to be a string down 2 frets back, right? Minor third. The sound of rock music is that minor third. And then just going to the same fret that you started, a string down. That's the minor. There's the root note, the minor third, the 4th, 5th. See how kind of symmetrical that is? 7A, 5D, 7D, 9D, and then we're gonna go to 7G. Because remember, the 7th fret all the way down the line is gonna work for anything in this key, but also more specifically any minor chords you can do this with. So, right? Root, minor third, 4th, 5th, minor 7th, and then you can get the octave. So, now this is something that'll track with really any minor chord in any key. So if we stay with the minor chords in this key, we could go to the B minor, like that, and then the other one that works in this key is A minor. So it's just a different way of kind of arriving at the same notes, but you're arriving at notes that are more exclusive to this chord tones, which why if you're playing like just chord tones right next to a chord, or maybe will sound a little more cohesive. That's the only downside to just thinking of 5 and 7 and 5 and 7 the whole way down, because I could play like a chord or something, and then it's like, well, are these notes that I'm playing, are they part of the chord, or am I just doing something in the key that sounds pretty much mostly right? The nice thing about doing this, where you're following it up with notes in that chord, maybe just played in a different way with slides, something like that, but it's going to sound a little more cohesive and put together, right? So again, you can do this in any of the minor chords you ever see. This is especially helpful if you're doing maybe a more complex piece of music that adds a minor chord where it not necessarily should be one thing about, you know, the key of G is F sharp is a note, right? And usually the chord that goes with that is F sharp minor 7 flat 5. But a lot of times I'll see in songs that maybe that's just a replacement for, you know, an extra minor chord. So you can play F sharp minor in the key of G major, and it won't be so different. Like an example of that, like let's play G major 7, D9, E minor, and then end on G. See how I'm kind of like climbing up it? I'm going E minor, F sharp minor, and then G. If I were to solo over that, and I got to that F sharp minor, it's like, oh man, this is kind of like there's a note in there that I know isn't in the key. I'm not sure exactly. It's just a quick moment. What do? You can just quick hit him with that minor 7 arpeggio. And there you go. And you're good. So it's a really great kind of tool just to have in playing over the changes, so on and so forth. So real quick, let's do this in another key. Let's go B flat. All right, so the key of B flat major is right here. There's that 6th fret on the low E string. There's my B flat note. So we could take the major scale and be, all right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I end up on the 10th fret of the A string. This happens to be a G. So G minor is going to be the relative minor of this chord. I can turn it into a minor 9 chord right there. And I can still do all the stuff, but now it's like, all right, I'm going off of my parent major key, 2 frets higher, and now 8, 10, 8, 10, 8, 10, 8, 10, 8, 10, 8, 10 is like going to be my launch zone, essentially, where I know that I have this chord, maybe here, and home. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then all of this stuff's kind of in between, right? So let's just do the minor chords. So let's go the 6th chord to the 3 chord, just back and forth between those two. So this would be G minor to G minor 9 to D minor. Go to the 2 chord. And again, you know, it might seem like I'm doing this super fast, but it's easy because I'm just picking a note or a chord at random and then just getting into this spot, right? So again, it's a little bit of overkill because I was talking about the same thing in the other video as compared to major chords, but I think this is such an important concept. It's worth talking about in both a major and a minor context, because again, like I said, it's so easy to move these around. And then, you know, just the concept of arpeggios and doing that as like little licks is something that everybody should know. So if you have any questions, let me know. Thank you again to Sweetwater Sennheiser. Definitely check out this microphone. I'm so stoked that these microphones are so much better than like using an interface and using like another shotgun microphone doing it. The fact that you can get it straight into the camera. You can actually do a high-pass filter on it too, so in case there's like a garage door underneath you open it, it'll filter out most of that stuff automatically, and it just sounds great. So thank you to Sennheiser, thank you to Sweetwater, thank you for watching. If you have any questions or comments, let me know.